everybody. My name is Chris, and I'm a drug addict.
Chris.
Thank you, Kyle, and the group for having. Half the group's not even here, and they're calling these fake sick stories. Anyway, so welcome to everybody, and congratulations to everybody. Welcome to anybody coming back, and congratulations. There was a bunch of hands went up for months. If you got loaded the way I did, that's a big deal. Putting a day together, a week together, 2 weeks into these months, that's a big deal, man. And so welcome. So my sobriety date, clean date, whatever we call it here, is March 17th, 2009. And I got sober by way of the Florida State prison system. I got sober by the county jail. My Pasco County Sheriff helped me get sober. But I tried a bunch of times. I tried getting sober. One more attempt and one more failure, right? I would come into these rooms and I just couldn't seem to put it together. But so tonight we're on 6 and 7. So I get it. If you're new, this is like a weird place to jump into the middle of this work that we talk about in here. So just kind of hang with me. I'm going to bring, my experience from, I'm going to come up to this point, because I mean, if we're studying this best tool we have, and this is our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right, that Kyle just read, it's 2 paragraphs, so we could be done with this thing. You know, we could get you back to the med line in freaking 15-20 minutes or so. We could be out of here, but I'm gonna eat up some time here talking about, you know, why even do this? What is this even about? Why character defects, right? So I got loaded for the first time when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, and I didn't really know it at the time, but I was so wrapped up in myself. I was so in my head. I was so worried about what you were thinking about me. I didn't even know that, but that's all. I was just consumed. You know, this book calls it the bondage of self, and that's really what I was just it was just on me. That's all I cared about, was trying to impress you, right? I don't even know you, but please like me, please accept me. I want to fit in, but I'll do weird stuff to not fit in, but then that gets attention, and I got this whole thing going on. I never felt like I fit in with the guys in school or anything. I'm an only child, and when I just gravitated toward like older, you know, guys and girls that were like a few grades up. I thought they were cool. I thought kids my age were weird, stupid. You know, I have this weird head on me. I don't even know any of this going into it, and I'm hanging out with some guys that I've known my entire life. I grew up right around here, went to all the schools around here, all this stuff, and I grew up with the same group of guys, and I never felt a part of this group. I really never did. But I got drunk one time, kind of felt this magic that is produced here. But, you know, this is daa, and this is great because this is how my story really started. I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, but so I was smoking pot every day with these guys, and I just immediately fit in. I loved, as soon as I found this stuff, I was just like, why have we been not doing this? Like, and then I started drinking, I started doing pills, started doing all kind of other stuff. But it was absolutely, it was a real gateway drug, like they call it, but it really was, man. I got loaded, and I could not stand the way I felt sober after that. When I would not be high or not be loaded, I hated the way I felt. It was like back to reality, back to, you know, whatever, school or whatever's going on. It's just everything's better when I'm loaded, right? So I'm smoking before school, and we're drinking on the weekends, and I'm doing other things, and I just loved it. I absolutely, loved it was absolutely a spiritual experience. And I couldn't have put those words to it then, but that's the kind of thing I'm suffering. I got this hole inside me, and you fill it in for the first time, and I get loaded for the first time, and it's like this puzzle piece just fit in there, man. I just felt so good. I felt, just totally, like these guys that I didn't fit in with, all of a sudden I fit in with. Now, and this is kind of about what we're going to talk about tonight, But I got like this weird ego twist where these guys that I felt less than, all of a sudden I'm like, these guys should be damn lucky I'm hanging out with them, you know? Like I get this kind of a deal where all of a sudden now I got a chip on my shoulder, like, and it's the weirdest thing. Like I can go from less than to more than in a second. And I found all this out going through this work with someone else. I couldn't have put all this to words, right? I did none of this. This is not original, any of this stuff. Like I sat down with a sponsor and went through this stuff, and this was explained to me and pointed out, and my experience was lined up with what's in this book, and it absolutely saved my life. So I would get in a bunch of trouble all the time, and trouble, if you've never been in trouble, that's okay. That's not a prerequisite for Alcoholics Anonymous or Drug Addicts Anonymous or narcotic, none of the anonymous. Maybe going to jail anonymous, I suppose. You can't, that'd be a problem there. But anyhow, I just, I couldn't seem to stay out of trouble. And really what it was is there was this like bigger thing going on inside me that I just did not like the way I felt sober. And this is my solution to life. And you keep telling me I can't do it. And you keep telling me that you got to pee in a cup for 2 years or something to avoid jail, or you got to, all these, like, I could not seem to get out of trouble. And it just seemed like if everybody knew what it felt like for me to be sober, they wouldn't be asking me to be sober, right? They would give me a break and like let me do my thing. But I keep on and see this thing, just like my defects, just like what we're talking about tonight, just like these shortcomings and these defects, this thing was progressive in me. So what started out like some fun after school pot in the woods turned into like can't draw a sober breath, sticking a needle in my arm, walking up and down 19, living out of a backpack, smoking crack all day, stealing from cars. Like that's where my life had progressed at the end of this thing. So, and there was well-meaning people all throughout the way that tried to usher me back into these 12-step rooms, and I just could not stand the way I felt when I would sober up. Because by this time now I'm like years, I'm on these runs that are lasting long, and then I'd come to my senses, and I felt like a raw nerve. I don't know. I imagine everybody in here has detoxed from something because most of you guys are in that sort of a facility, but I felt like just a raw nerve trying to get sober. I just felt like just everything bothered me mentally, physically. Just you would touch me and I would like, I was coming apart. And the moment I would feel better mentally or physically or anything, I would turn around and do it again. And I did not see that that's what true powerless is. I didn't know that. I would come to these 12-step places and they would talk about being powerless. And I really thought that the powerless meant I have to not go around those people. And I can't put anything in me. I got to not put stuff in me, right? I can't drink. I can't use these drugs. I really have to stop just being around all of it. And really what I've come to believe today, what this guy showed me and what my experiences showed me, is that I don't have the power not to do that. That's what being powerless is. I do it when I don't want to do it, right? I sober up just long enough to start feeling terrible and just feeling like, what am I doing? It might have been the best idea in the world I had to try to get sober or to try to go back to Baycare or try to go, whatever, or now I'm in jail and I'm glad I'm going to a program or whatever. And man, you get me in a place like that and all of a sudden I start seeing like, man, they got dusty baseboards at this shithole, and I'm like, I got to get out of this place. I got to get a better program. And like all of a sudden, I don't realize it, but my head is talking me out of this thing that I was begging to get into. I begged to get Baycare before 2009. You could go to right now. You can go to Baycare like right now. Tell them I need a bed. They give you a bed. Like within a few hours, you got to sit in the lobby. You get a bed. They would have like a 2-week waiting list back in the day. You'd call and be like, I have no anything. Can I detox? And they're like, how's next Wednesday, the 19th sound? I'd be like, what? Like, what's the use, right? I'm going to get loaded. But I would beg to get into these places, and I would get in. I would somehow get into the detox, and I'm in there an hour, and I'm at the desk at the nurse's station, like, sign me out. I don't care if I'm AMA, whatever you're calling it. Let me out of this place. And I'm fighting the people to get out the door that I was just begging them to get in. And I don't realize it, but I got this, this book calls it alcoholism, this drug addiction. I got this warped mind that is just screaming to get loaded again. It's just trying to take me back to get loaded. It's forget my family that cares about me. Forget all, it does not matter. I'm just trying to get loaded. So I do it again. And I would do it again. And then this book talks about this physical thing that's also alive and well in me and in you, if you got this thing, where when I just take one to take the edge off, I'm not going back to Baycare. I'm not going back to the county jail. I'm just going to have one. And I have one, and I go on this run I didn't plan on going on. And now I'm in, St. Pete in a stolen car or something. It's 2 days later, and I'm like, well, if you give me a pile of crack, you can have the car, right? This is my solution to life, right? I got beat up down there and every other thing, and then I wind up back here. How did this happen again, right? And so that happens, not once. That happens a bunch of times. I'm not an easy study. Like, this happened a ton of times. As I am hard-headed. I do not learn from my mistakes, per se. Like, I am, like, whatever, not an easy candidate for this thing. For a while I was really resistant to all this stuff, and I would come back here, and now I have this much more willingness to try something different, and I would do just that, but I'm not doing the rest of the steps, or I'm not, whatever it is. I would always have a thing, and some dude told me that thing that you're unwilling to do is what's going to kill you. And I would have this thing that I would draw in the line, and I'm not doing that. I'm not shaking hand. I'm not putting your chair away. Why would I put your chair away? And I have all these things in my head, these old ideas. And whatever I'm unwilling to do is trying to kill me. And I don't even know it. And so we do this song and dance again. And I'm sold out on the idea that I'm powerless. But now, it's a funny thing that happens. Might happen to you after leaving a place like this that you're in. I was in a place that talked about this big book, and I bought all the way in. I believed in the physical allergy. I believed in this mental obsession. Yet I got loaded again, and now you've teleport me to some bathroom in a duplex in downtown, and I'm smoking crack with a stranger and telling them, we got to get to, there's a meeting at the A Club. We got to, and now I'm in like this weird place where I want so bad to be in these rooms. And I don't fit out in the world anymore. Yet I don't fit in these rooms because I'm not doing what these guys are doing in here. And I'm in this weird place where, like, I just can't seem to get on. I can't get off the drunk, the getting loaded. I can't get past the physical part of it. And that's where the Pasco County Sheriffs really saved my ass. They really did. Like, I do well. I'm not a go to Baycare and surrender and be like, I cause a little hissy fit and I get out of there. I don't stay there. But I can't leave jail, right? And I'm stuck in jail for a little while, long enough for the miracle to happen as far as my craziness in my mind was still there. But it was like there was like some part of me that kind of like surrendered to the fact that like maybe this is where I belong. And that wasn't me. That was of God that I didn't believe in at the time, right? These steps are all through this is all about God. And I didn't come here looking for that. And if you're not here looking for that, I understand that, right? But that's what happened with me. I found a God through working these steps. But I was so resistant to all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, I'm at a place where I was kind of like at a place of acceptance where I was like, whatever, this is better than I was living. And maybe this thing, I didn't even think these 12 steps would work. I really did not. But I did. I knew that what I was doing was not working. I was kind of sold on that idea for the first time in my life. I always thought about a plan B, or I always thought I had some kind of just wonderful plan. I met a girl in detox, and her tax return was due, and it was like the week of her scripts were redoing, it was like God's will. This is like, this is a freaking, you kidding me? Like, I just came in here with nothing. I got a date, and I have, we have plans when we leave here, and it ended terribly, really, is what it did. She was actually walking down 19 with me when I got arrested. Thank God for the last time. So I wind up in the county jail, and I had written a ton of fourth steps. I was sold out on the idea that, well, I don't even know if I'd call it sold out, but I knew what was on page 62 and 63. I knew that selfishness and self-centeredness was the root of my trouble. Like, I had read that. I understood at some kind of level. I didn't know it at a way that it was going to be meaningful, but I was buying into this thing. And I asked this guy, I wind up in prison there's a whole other set of circumstances. I wind up in the county jail for a while, sitting in there and doing these meetings and just having a bit of an open mind towards spiritual matters that I did not have before. And there was a guy that came into my path even in the county jail. He didn't sponsor me or anything. I ended up sponsoring him later on, but he taught me all kind of things about other spiritual literature, and like the dude saved my life at that season of my life for sure. So we do this deal in the county jail. We split ways. We go to different prisons. I go to this prison in North Florida, and you get to go to, I was raised Catholic, so when you put in your intake paperwork or whatever, you put what denomination or whatever. So they would let me go to this Catholic service. Once a month, this dude would come in, Father Bernie, this guy, and he was a cool dude. He was all right. It was nothing bad about him. But this book in the fifth step, it talks about that when we decide who's to hear our story, we ask the person, what my understanding of this is today, and I'm getting somewhere. I'm getting to these defects, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. A sponsor knows me inside and out. My sponsor knows the kind of stuff I do, the stuff I did, knows all these defects and how they show up. If I just share this stuff with a priest and then he never sees me again, well, then who's going to kind of keep an eye on me as I'm getting off the path down the road, right? So do it with a priest if that's your thing, but I was always told do it with a sponsor. When this book was written, to put it into context, the term sponsor wasn't even a thing, or else it would just say do it with a sponsor, right? So, but anyhow, I asked this guy, Father Bernie, I say, hey, I've been in AA at the time. I've been in these 12-step fellowships a bunch of times, and I cannot stay sober because I've never done a fifth step. I've written all these fourth steps, but I've never really shared it and done a fifth step, right? So this is our process here, that we write this stuff down in a fourth step, we share it with someone in a fifth step, right? That's kind of where we're at if you're kind of throwing numbers at you. So he says, yes, come early next month. So I meet the guy once a month. He says, come early next month and you can do this fifth step with me. And my belief is that the God that I didn't even really believe in at the time kind of saw my heart and saw that I was trying to do something because I put it out in the universe. Like, hey, Mr. Father Bernie, will you do this thing? And what he did was he sent me another junkie just like me. And in that time, when I asked that priest if I could do the fifth step with him, literally, I think it was maybe not that day, certainly like that week, but it was definitely in that month. I never ended up doing it with that priest because another guy came into my dorm who was a junkie, alcoholic, card-carrying member of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And he was the real deal. He was just another inmate. He was getting ready to go home back to upstate New York, but he was an AA member. And I know this is DA, but I got sober in AA, so I'm just sharing my experience with you. But this dude knew this book inside and out. And not only did he know that, he knew how to reach somebody like me because he knew all about himself. He wasn't coming at me from a place of you got to do this, this, and this. And what the hell are you doing with your life? Look at you. You're in prison, you loser. Like, he wasn't doing that. He was just like, dude, I trashed my family. I hurt everybody. They would give me one more chance and I would do it again. They'd pay for lawyers. I'd basically throw it in their face and violate the probation or the bond and disappear, and they'd have to come find all this crazy stuff that we do. He was telling me that he did. And you can't make that stuff up. You don't read that in a book and then tell someone about it. You live that, right? And this dude lived that. And the God that I was coming to believe in used this dude that looked just like me with the same blue DOC uniform, and he got through to me, right? It wasn't a counselor or any, and I'm not knocking that. If that's how you get sober, that's wonderful, however you do it. But this is what I needed at this time, I believe. And this guy walked me through this process in a way that seemed so simple. It was so simple what he did. And I come to find out it's just what this book talks about, right? I had read this book alone. I had read this book in meetings where we read 6 pages in a row and don't share about it, and we read through this work. But I had never sat with a sponsor or a guide or a teacher or whatever you want to call it and gone through this book. And what he did was he lined his experience up, and he would ask me about my experience. And then we would see where I was where we could find us in the book. And this book came alive. It really did. It came alive and it saved my life. When that reading that Kyle talked about, that this is the most cherished possession we have, I believe that, right? I don't worship this book. This book brought me to a God that loves me to death and wants nothing but good for me. But I got all this other stuff fighting me. I got this. If you're in church, they call it the devil. If you're here, they call it character defects or sin. Or, sin is in church, here is shortcomings. Or it's all the same, right? But myself is trying to get me and to kick my ass all the time. Like, if there is no one in this room more that screwed my life up than me. I screwed my own life up worse than anybody ever did me. And this guy made this deal seemed so simple the way he broke it down. And so we get to this point where I shared things with this guy I was not going to tell another person. I was going to die with these secrets inside of me, right? Fill in the blank, whatever it is. Some were weird, some weren't even. I've had sponsored guys lately that it's like, damn, man, like, you got some real things. But I had some things. And whatever your thing is, it's your thing. And it's the thing that I'm not telling anybody, right? And this dude opened this 5th step up by sharing these things with me. Stuff that I had on mine. In the middle of a rec yard. In the middle of Taylor Correctional on a rec yard, on a sandy-ass rec yard where they're playing basketball over here, and there's a giant football field here, and there's guys hustling over, there's everything's happening. This is the place to be. And this dude is sharing his life with me. Saving my life. Releasing me from prison is what the dude did. I promise you. And I did a 5th step with this guy, just like he did with me. He did it. He came out of the gate doing it, and I said, I'm in. I wasn't going to say any of this stuff, and I did it. I said, I got this, I did that too, and I got this. And then I had all this stuff that was meaningless written down. It was good. I'm glad I did it, but it was nothing compared to what I did with this guy. It paled in comparison to what just talking one alcoholic, one drug addict with another. Just this, something happens in that just that identification, that bond that you don't get anywhere else. I haven't found it. So I do this deal with this guy, and he tells me, we didn't even really talk about 6 and 7. Hell, they closed the rec yard, and after the rec yard closes, you go back to your dorm, and they count you, and it takes a while. And he said, read this stuff, bottom of 75 into 76, and I'm going to read it here. And it was like that. Done with 6 and 7, it said, right? It says, returning home. Well, my home was A200 at the time, right? But it says, returning home. We find a place where we could be quiet for an hour. So this is after I do this 5th step, right? I do this 5th step. Now I'm returning home. This place where I could be quiet for an hour. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf. I didn't have a shelf. I was living out of a steel locker, a little locker at the foot of my bed, right? It says, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we asked if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Any construction guys in here? What happens if what if you're trying to mix some cement and you got some Portland, but you got no mix, you got no base, or you got Portland, right? You got nothing. You got a pile of something and a pile of something. Am I trying to do that with this? Do I have all these ingredients in place? Am I trying to skimp on it? Am I trying to stretch it out? My concrete's going to crumble if I'm messing around with this, right? If I got too much sand in it, right? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Okay, so that's cute, nice analogy. But where am I at? How did I do this thing? Did I leave something out? Did I leave out that, whatever, fill in the blank? You hung out with them, had some older neighbor try touching my dick. Did I leave out stuff? Did I leave out that, things that just make me so weird, right? Because all this stuff is what's in between me and you, and really in between me and God. And I don't know it. But am I free of that? Did I get that stuff out? If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. Okay, so what's step 6, right? Step 6 says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So in this 5th step, I learned what all these defects of character I had were. I learned I didn't know what I was blocked off from this power from, right? I had this guy sit across from me, and since then I've had different guys do it different ways. They might even take notes while I'm doing a 5th step or something, or I've had that. What are you writing in that clipboard over there? But I've had guys take notes. I have guys just sit and listen and identify and say, oh, that's that, that's this. So can I now answer? It says, I have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Am I now ready to let God remove from me, all the things that I've admitted are objectionable? So what is objectionable? Well, it means it ain't working for me. So what's not working for me? Well, what's not working for me is always trying to get my damn way and getting in trouble doing it. And having a judgment about everything. I don't know how you guys are, but I come into a place like this, or a treatment center or jail, very humble and meek, and I'll open-minded, I'll listen to whatever you have to say. And then as soon as I start physically feeling better, I learn which counselor is an idiot. I don't listen to them, and then the whole staff eventually starts bleeding into that category, or which guy I don't want to hear from, or which, and I have this thing where I just can kind of go through my head and get a judgment about everybody that I'm not so keen on, right? All of a sudden now I get, I had a guy tell me that I was in the book I read this morning, actually. It says, if God wanted me to be a cop, he'd give me a cop uniform, and if he wanted me to be a judge, I'd be in a robe up here, right? But I'm in a flannel shirt, right? I'm in neither of those, right? Because I'm not the judge. I'm not the enforcer of anything. I'm a bozo on the bus, right? That's what they talk about in here. This is just to keep me right-sized. So it says, can he now take them all, every one of them? Okay, so can he? If we still cling to something, so this would be like maybe a deep-seated resentment that I'm unwilling to let go, whatever. After I do this 5th step with somebody, I say, well, if you still have something, you don't have to ask, you don't have to be rid of it right now, but can you ask God to help you be willing? Pray for the willingness to be willing, right? Can we get to that point? And then I did all this on my bunk. This doesn't take forever, right? In this first go through. It says, when ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Because I'm unqualified to know what is good and what is bad in my life. I don't know what things are working for me and what things aren't, right? I'm brand new in this thing. I'm coming through this thing, not understanding anything. I'm relying on someone else's judgment in my life. It says, I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character. What? So I could be perfect? No. that stands in the way of my usefulness to my fellows. So sometimes this defective character that I have gets in the way of me being useful to you. And I can't be helpful to somebody if I got all this stuff in the way. If what's in the way is me being concerned about what you think about me, well, then I might be unwilling to share some things, or I might be unwilling to get up here and do something like this. If I'm driven by what you think about me, right? That's fair to say. So, God, please remove that. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Bidding is just another word for work, right? So when I go out here to do your work, it says we have then completed step 7. Oh, I'm sorry, it says amen, because if you're like a big book guy like I turned into, there's no amen after the 3rd step prayer, right? We say this 3rd step prayer, we do this body of work in 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then we say amen. So that's what that looked like on the first go-through, the first pass-through on this, right? And I truly believe my experience has been that 6 and 7 is something that I'm not done doing. It's not like these things that I checked off a list and now, yes, I went right to step 8 and 9 and I started making amends. But I'm not done with 6 and 7. That wasn't something that I'm like, okay, glad that's all behind me. Because my experience has been, and it's a corny analogy, but it works, especially the first time you hear anything about this. But remember that game with the whack-a-mole, right? The bowling alley had the hippos instead of the moles, but it's the same idea. You hit one down, the next 2 come up. That's how my defects are, right? I get a handle on this being a dick to my wife thing, and now all of a sudden I'm over here trying to rip people off at work, or and all this stuff. Like this is still alive and well. I'm 16 years sober. I'm not rendered white as snow. What this looks like today is that I'm awake to it. I'm aware of it. There's a bunch of people that always talk about that as you stay on this path longer, it gets narrow. What used to be okay in the beginning, broad, roomy, going to the strip club, acting crazy, selling some non-addictive weed to people, whatever it may be. I'm doing all this stuff sober. Now, all of a sudden, as I stay sober longer and on this path, stuff that I was willing and able to do at one time, I'm unable and willing to do, right? I get to a point where now this stuff is becoming so unbearable, sober, that I have no choice but to let God try to do something with it. It's the same way that I didn't get sober out of virtue. I didn't get physically sober. Yes, I wanted to be sober, but I didn't get sober out of like, I'm going to go back to detox and buckle down and do it right this time. It happened I burnt my life to the ground. It happened out of pure desperation. I wind up here at this place where now God finally removes this thing from me. Okay, now what's that look like with this? Well, I got to go through life cheating people at work long enough until it gets so unbearable sober that I'm either going to tell somebody about it, quit doing it, and make amends for it, or I'm going to blow my brains out, or I'm going to take a drink. And then I ask God for help, right? Then I don't know if that's painting a wonderful picture if you're brand new, but that's what this thing has looked like for me. A series of being so uncomfortable in my skin sober that it drives me back to God and ask Him for help. Humbly, right? It says humbly. I don't know what that is for you. I don't know what that is for me. I don't know. I know how to feign being humble, yes, very humble. I don't know what that looks like, but humility's all through this deal, right? And what that is, in my experience, is one of the most humble acts you can do is keep receiving help, I was told. Keep asking for help. This dude, Sandy, that used to go around speaking, used to say, every year at his anniversary, when they would ask you how you did it, one of the things he would say was he was continuously asking for help. Dude was like almost 50 years sober when he died. Why was he continuously asking for help? Because we don't outgrow this thing. I don't have the answers. I have to come to you guys. I need the answers. Please give me the answers. I need help. I'm not, you get to some part here where I'm the sponsor now. I have the answers. No, I never want to get to that place because I don't have the answers. God, it says in How It Works that we read, right? It says there's one, like only one, who has all the power. So if there's one bottle of water and I got all of it, how much bottle of water does it leave you? None, right? There's one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now, right? There's one, and it ain't me. And I need to keep coming back here and tapping into something bigger than me and continuously asking for help with this thing. So I believe, my experience, I think the God that I came to believe in and fell in love with, and I believe loves me to death and is willing to have my back through it all, I think that God is just powerful enough to render me white as snow and send me out into the world good as new forever, right? I believe that. I really do. But I also believe that he ain't going to do that because he's smart, right? Smarter than me. And what I mean by that, once I don't need you, once I realize I don't need you, guess what? I don't need you. I ain't coming around you. I ain't asking you for anything because I'm selfish and I'm self-centered and I don't need you, right? And as cruel as that sounds, that's real talk, right? If I don't need something from you, it's just like that. And if I don't need this God, if I don't deep down in my DNA know that I need this God constantly, I'm not going to seek him, right? And what that looks like for me is a whole bunch of forgetting that, being in a bunch of pain, being driven to my knees, quite literally, praying, and then moving my feet and getting back busy in the work of helping his kids. And in doing that, there was a time in my sobriety, about, 7 years, doesn't matter. It was halfway through where I am now, somewhere around there. The time doesn't matter, but I had positioned myself to a place where I was at a place where I was doing all this stuff. I was doing a lot of AA activities. You could look at my AA resume and see that I was doing a lot of the stuff that we do here. But at a heart level, I probably wasn't. And I wasn't doing it at a meaningful level because I wasn't growing in understanding and effectiveness. And what that looked like for me is a lot of the guys that I was sponsoring at that time got different sponsors. And a lot of the people I was hanging out with didn't want to hang out with me anymore. And it wasn't, absurd or anything. Like, I was still all right, fitting in, having friends and stuff. But it got to a place where no one really wanted to mess around with me in this regard or trust me with their life like we do here. And it almost turned, I got right back into doing this work. I submitted to this process again. And I went through this work, and I started really taking a look every night at 10, 11, and 12, and really kind of, I hate digging in, but like I really looked at 6 and 7 and where I was at with these defects, and it changed. It came alive, right? And it's been on a different trajectory now. Like, it goes the other way now. I've got a bunch of guys that I get to help, and that they help me. And to echo what that dude Sandy said, like, they help me because I remain willing to ask them for help. Like, I didn't outgrow this thing. I've got all my defects with me here tonight. I got all the character defects. You should have seen me at work today. I got all the crazy thoughts in my head, because I can't work on them myself, right? If your car, and I'll shut up with this. If your car is messed up, you got a new car maybe, like Michelle's got a pretty new car, right? If you had a new car and you'd get the recall, right? Get the recall if you got a safety issue. I guess not even new cars. Any car, right? You get a recall. They don't send you the parts or something, right? You got to go back to the manufacturer. And that's what we got to do with God. When I am defective, when I got a defective part, when I got something wrong here, I can't do this on my own. I got to submit to this thing and go back to the creator, go back to the manufacturer, go back to this power, and let him do his thing with me, and then come out of the other side. So I think that's enough out of me. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Chris.